Alright guys, so today's video is not just going to be important for people that are in school, it's going to be useful for anybody, but I will be giving a lot of examples related to school. You should constantly be studying and learning to improve your skill set and gain new skill sets. And so these are all things that you can apply to that because a lot of the time, what you learn from school is kind of useless, but it's actually like the key skills, like your time management, your discipline, how hard you work. Those are like the things that school actually builds, right? So, unlike some of my past videos, I kind of tell you how I didn't start off with much success in that domain, but for school, it's a little bit different. Because in general, like academics and effective learning, it was something that I kind of grasped a bit more naturally. However, I think that this actually makes me a bit more qualified to teach you effective learning because there's just some things that I've picked up on that I didn't necessarily learn from anywhere. And also because even though I started at a high baseline relative to other people, I've constantly been able to improve my learning and like the speed at which I learn year by year. So in school, that was like one of the things I kind of prided myself on. It was that like even though I did well, I still constantly improved, and like that was shown through my grades. I actually also have experience like teaching and like being a private tutor. Like that's what I did on the side, or I still do on the side. So it's not like I've only improved my own effective learning skills and grades. I've also helped improve people that were below that baseline. And the thing is yes, I do give them you know private lessons and ways to think that actually helps teach them. But more importantly, I actually focus on teaching them like learning strategies, right? I'm actually teaching them how to learn, which is kind of bad for my business because as a tutor, you kind of want them dependent on you so that they keep coming back. But it's not really something I do, solely for the pay. It's something I actually do because I enjoy in teaching them. And so this is kind of why I also started the YouTube channel. But the point I'm trying to get at is that by teaching them how to learn, and even for myself, learning how to learn is actually what helped me get better year after year. Even though I have like some, higher level, base level of intelligence, it's actually kind of applying that that allowed me to continually do better. And so, like, the biggest example for me was when I transitioned from high school to university where I took engineering. Everybody kind of told me that if I wanted to continue doing stuff outside of school, like I told you, I was tutoring. I wanted to keep up social obligations, keep up my relationships outside of school, go to the gym, learn about nutrition and health, right? If I wanted to keep up all those things, people were telling me that you're actually going to end up doing worse because just how the course load and like the course content is. But I was actually able to do better than I did in high school, even though I thought I did quite well in high school. And it's just because I continually learned how to learn. And so that's what I want to show for you guys today. So the first thing that I want to talk about is your health. I kind of mentioned this in every video, and it's kind of a cliche, but it's very important, right? Your health plays a massive role in your cognitive performance, and not just your cognitive performance, but things like how hard you can work and your discipline at the moment. I never understood why like people would pull all-nighters to cram for a test because you're kind of just losing your recovery capabilities and your memory and how fast you can like retain information. And so in the short term it seems like a better idea, but in the long term you're not setting yourself up for success. So I want you to kind of get out of that mindset that you shouldn't be focusing on your health during a busy learning season of your life, right? I've seen a lot of people actually start giving up physical activity when it's time for exams, but you kind of have to understand that it's physical activity that actually increases like blood flow to the brain. So that's what's going to enhance your cognitive skills. And it doesn't even have to be like very like arduous exercise. If you're thinking of stopping at the gym instead, your actionable step here would be to instead maybe lower the intensity just for that period. So the next thing I want to talk about, still related to health, is your diet. It's the same thing, really, right? If you feel like shit, you won't perform at your highest level, which you need to for the methods I'm going to be giving you here. There's very little room for shallow work if you want to, be effective, while at the same time having more time to do other things in your life, right? That's the whole goal of this guide that I'm going to be going over. And so, you need to be focusing on what you eat. You know what you need to eat and what you don't. You can watch, I think it's my last video on, one aspect that I think a lot of people don't talk about, which is micronutrients. And then you also need to figure out, kind of experiment with what you feel good eating. So, for example, what I like to do is in the morning, I like to have a breakfast that's low in carbs, just because I find that if I have too many carbs, then I get brain fog, and there's like biological reasons for that that I could go into. I'd like to go into in a separate video, but essentially, if you have something like eggs in the morning, right? So it's low carb for the morning, but then also it contains a lot of the nutrients that you need to be functioning, at your highest, like choline, for example. The next thing we need to talk about is your motivation to learn. So this isn't necessarily mandatory to do, but I think it's very important that you kind of take some time, even write it out. Take a piece of paper, write out the connection between what you want to learn, or what you're trying to study for, and what matters to you in life, right? So sometimes it can be simple, right? Getting a good grade just means good future opportunities, and freedom to choose what you want to do, right? That could be related to your work, or more school that you want to do. It could also be out of interest, right? That can actually be developed, I think, even if you're not interested in one area, but you kind of get through the hard part of actually opening up the book and doing a little bit of the research. You can actually learn to love a lot of hard tasks, new tasks, and then sometimes you just have to get it done, right? So there's kind of three groups that I mentioned that you can fall into, but you want intent in what you're doing, right? And the one thing about school that's nice is that you're doing it with other people. So if those three categories didn't apply to you, you can just turn it into a competition, which is nice, right? But then you also want to be able to get to know other people who want to learn similar things, because that way, if you don't understand something, the best person to learn it from is somebody who like just finished learning it, right? Because they can boil it down into something that's a bit more digestible for you. It's very important that it's not just you always asking somebody. Let's just say you're in class, right? It's not always you asking them. You want to try and actually reciprocate that, not just because if you help them, and they help you, then it helps create more trust and bond. That way you can, have somebody in the future to ask questions to. But also, if you help other people in what you're learning, it actually will make you a better learner, right? So if you can't teach somebody something, it kind of means that you don't know it yourself. For me, I noticed that heavy when I started tutoring. So it was like the same concepts. It was like high school math and physics that I was tutoring. And I noticed that I understood it way better when I changed my mindset. It was no longer like I just have to learn it for a test. It was I had to learn it because I had to teach it to somebody. So I really had to, simplify it in the way that I would learn and that I could teach to somebody else, right? And so going along that, if you're helping somebody and they're helping you, that can actually lead to like having a study partner where you kind of keep each other accountable. I think that's a very good idea if those other three categories I mentioned don't apply to you. If you can have kind of somebody to help keep you accountable and you keep them accountable, where you kind of have a nice dynamic where maybe you want to do better than them, but you also want to see them do better. That's a kind of the win-win situation. The other kind of side tangent here is that you have to realize, what are you trying to get out of your learning? Whatever you're trying to get out of it, likely if you know somebody in that field, or if you know somebody who's also trying to learn said activity. A big example of this is in university, where everybody is basically trying to look for a job in that field afterwards. Having a connection, and not just like a connection through familiarity, but a connection in that domain, will help you a lot more than you think, right? If you're ever looking for an internship or a job after you graduate, a lot of the time, people that you worked with during your time at college or university can actually refer you getting to what you actually desired, right? And that's where making that connection and proving yourself to be somebody that's dependable but also knowledgeable comes in your favor. So in the end, if you can't find your source of motivation from what I've mentioned, these list I've given you of things that you could potentially do, and I genuinely want you to write this out, then you have to give yourself urgency. I made a previous video, but the essential tasks that you need to do, you have to give yourself a deadline for them and then associate kind of a risk or reward for, or sorry, a punishment or a reward for what's going to happen if you don't or do accomplish it, right? So this is a big thing I notice is that people just don't have the motivation to learn. They actually can learn, it's just they don't have it. But now let's actually get into the main part of the video, and that is like some actual techniques to help you learn faster. So, like I mentioned previously, you want to be able to explain a concept to somebody else because that actually means you learned it. And the way that you can do this while you're, getting a lecture from somebody, or while you're reading, or while you're watching a YouTube video, is that you write the notes in your own words. So maybe even in this video, you can even give it a shot. You can try and write what I'm saying. Maybe the way that I speak isn't generally the way that you speak. So whatever I say, you can translate it into your own notes and keep that saved somewhere. So, if you ever see something on the board or you ever see something on your computer screen, I really tell you to not just write it how it's seen. Try and write it in the short way, however you naturally would talk. If you take a look at any of my notes, I'll try and put some of them on the screen. Generally, a lot of them are not even full sentences or even full words. Like it might have like three clearly defined letters, then like it might even have a scribble at the end, just so I know that like the concept that I'm talking about is being shown. It doesn't have to be the exact syntax that's being used. So oftentimes the reason why people don't have effective learning or will simply stop learning is because they'll reach a concept that's just a little hard for them to grasp. The thing is, they might avoid it, but this is the part that you actually want to happen because this is where the active learning actually occurs. Here, you need to make sure you have somebody that you can refer to. That could be a instructor, that could be somebody who's already taken the class, it could be somebody who's currently taking the class. And then also, there's a lot of free online resources tailored to a lot of the education that's out there. A lot of the time, you can put in the course code that you're taking, and you'll have like a forum or like a thread where your answer might be found. Okay, and then the other thing is there's also a lot of YouTube videos, and especially playlists of YouTube videos that will take you along for the full concept. The part that's nice about a YouTube video learning instead of like going to a lecture is that you can kind of rewind it and hear stuff again that you probably missed on your first listen. And you also have the ability to slow it down or speed it up if necessary. Thing is that in 2024 we have ChatGPT. So what I'd suggest you do here is you give it the source material, like the lecture notes, and you have it give you a brief summary or even a more detailed summary in certain locations. The thing is if you give it the source material, when you ask questions, you're going to get more tailored answers. So that's one thing. The other thing is once you've had the concept understood, you need to actually test yourself, right? You need to use the concepts you've learned to problem solve. That way they actually stick. In high school and in university, in schooling, I think the best way to do this is find somebody who has already taken the class that you're currently doing and ask them for any of their old tests, exams, assignments, anything like their old material. And you're going to be using that to study, right? Because that has questions that you'll probably be getting and questions that relate to the concepts you've learned. The other thing is you can probably find a lot of the material online simply by typing in the course code or the related topic that you're learning. The other thing here is that maybe you're not able to do that, or it's just not enough to last you multiple study sessions. It's just not enough content. What you can do is take the questions that you've already been doing and what you've been given and actually put those into ChatGPT in the same chat that you've been throwing your lecture notes. This is really good because it has an idea of what you're learning and how you're learning it, so it's specific to the person that's teaching you. But at the same time, it can actually give you the answers and explanations as well. So what I would suggest here is you ask it to make a mock test, right? Maybe it's like an interview test. You give it the same conditions that you would have. If it's a test, you give it the same time limit. Tell me, make a test that should be done in this time limit, and you're going to actually time yourself and do the test that you're getting, and then give yourself a score based off of the answers. Thing is, sometimes the answers can be wrong, so you need to, have some of that source material and understand it to consult and make sure it's correct. The other thing here is I would actually suggest you get the highest paid version of ChatGPT or whatever model you're using, because yes, it will improve the quality of your answers, but I think it's important that we actually use this as its own skill, right? How to use AI in your everyday life to make the tasks that you're doing faster and more effective. And the best way to do this is through whatever model is best at its time. So although this was like kind of maybe it's a little weird to hear that I'm telling you that you're going to be learning by having like the paid model. I fully think that it's something that you should do, because chances are whatever you're going into, whatever you're learning, can be disrupted by AI. So you want to be able to, have that advantage over anybody else, or stay on the same level as anybody else by using all the resources you can. Right? That's one of the main reasons I think I did so well, is because I wasn't afraid to ask anybody, but I also wasn't afraid to search up anything I needed to further my understanding. I know I talked quite a bit here, so I want to leave you guys with a quick summary. The first thing is you don't want to neglect your health. Even if that's just a quick walk in between your study sessions, you have to keep up some sort of activity level. Next, you want to make sure you're using all of your resources to learn from, an example of this being YouTube video of the entire course that you're learning. Next, you even want to make sure you're reaching out to the instructor or people that are currently taking the class. That way, you're building a network. And then finally, make sure whatever you learned, you're using it to solve problems. A good way to find problems is using past material from somebody who has already taken the course, or you can generate your own material using ChatGPT.